Moving to a new country and finding childcare for your baby can be a challenge.
Yeah, navigating a different childcare system in a foreign country with all the different processes, costs, logistics, and everything can be daunting to say the least.
Our baby was born here in Lisbon, Portugal, and as we have no family living here, we were looking for a nanny to help us out for support.
Yeah, and on top of that, we also just recently enrolled her in local daycare.
So, if you're a parent that is thinking about moving to Portugal with young kids and you're curious about how to find a nanny or daycare, then this video is for you. Hi everyone, welcome back to our channel Nations Without Borders. My name is Josine.
Hi, and I'm Eric, and together with our daughter Nora, we are the Nation family.
If this is your first time on our channel, welcome! We are an international semi-nomadic family based here in Portugal for the last 3 years. On this channel we publish weekly videos on our expat life here in Portugal, remote work, family travel, lifestyle, and everything in between.
Yeah, speaking of family life here in Portugal, let's talk about finding childcare or a nanny for your baby or toddler.
Yes, so in this week's video we're going to talk about nannies and daycare here in Portugal, our experience here in Lisbon, including the costs, the process, and everything that was involved.
All right, so how to find a babysitter or nanny here in Portugal. Let's first talk about our experience.
Yeah, so when we were searching for one, at the time I could only think of like 4 different ways of finding a nanny. That is like Facebook groups for parents or your neighborhood or babysitters, WhatsApp group for parents. There are multiple WhatsApp groups here in Lisbon for parents, friends of friends. I mean, other people with kids have nannies or babysitters, so maybe they know someone. Or agencies. There are plenty of apps and websites out there that are offering nanny services or babysitter services, like Babysits or babysisters.pt or nannypoppins.pt. There's a lot, but we didn't use any of those websites because we got a recommendation from a friend of a friend.
Yeah, and that was actually how we found our nanny, was just through friends of friends. So luckily we had already been here for a while before we gave birth to our daughter. So we already had a little bit of a local network, and we had some friends that were also in the same phase of life with children. So we reached out through our local network and were able to find a nanny that way, which was great, because if you can get a recommendation from someone that had a positive and good experience, and that's even more of a trustworthy referral. But of course, if you're coming here from a different country and you're immigrating over here and moving here and you don't have that local friend network, then those agencies are also a great option.
So we didn't use any of these agencies, websites, or apps, but if you did and you have a good experience with them, leave it in the comments, because that will help other parents that are coming here or already here that are now watching this video as well, that are curious about these agencies. So if you have a recommendation, put it in the comments. I'm curious to know. How easy is it to get a nanny? I think if you're living in Lisbon like us, it's fairly easy to get like babysitters or a nanny. Like bigger cities, more people, bigger demand. But if you're further away you are from the city center, it's gonna get harder, because nannies tend to not want to travel too far to find your house, of course. So we cannot really speak for smaller towns, but I do know that the further away from the city center, the harder it's going to be.
Yeah, for example, we have some friends that live across the bridge in Caparica, and I know there's less options available over there for them, because if a nanny has to travel all the way from the city center, that's anywhere from 30 to 45 minutes, which is just not really realistic. And for us too, we're in the middle of probably moving to a smaller town in Portugal. And even though it's a smaller town with less people, this particular town has a tight-knit community. And so if you move somewhere where there is that community aspect, sometimes the people are even more involved, more willing to help each other, and it's almost sometimes even easier to find a nanny or babysitter. So again, it all depends on the region, the type of town that you're living to, and if there is a community that's active.
Yeah, there's parents everywhere, so I'm pretty sure you're not alone. It just takes a little bit more time, effort, and creativity to find that nanny. It also means you integrate faster, so I think that's a big plus.
All right, so what is the typical cost for a nanny or a babysitter here in Portugal? Well, this can be a little bit of a tough question to answer, because it depends on what area you're in, and it also depends on if you're going through an agency or you're just hiring a nanny or babysitter directly.
Yeah, because if you're going through an agency, there's also a fee that you need to pay to that agency, so that's on top of the price that they already project for you. But we can talk about what we paid for our nanny and what we hear from other parents.
So for our nanny, we were paying 12 euros and 50 cents per hour, which actually is a little bit on the higher side because generally they can range anywhere from 7 euros to around 12. So we were on the higher side. But at the time, we were kind of desperate and we started our search a little bit late. So that is just what we found. And she had really good references and an amazing referral. So that's just what we went with. But we are happy we did because our nanny turned out to be amazing.
Yeah. We have friends that had a nanny full-time, like 5 days a week, 8 or 9 hours a day. They paid 1,400 euros per month. So if you calculate that down to per hour, what is that? 8 something?
8.75.
Yeah, so if you calculate it down to an hourly rate, it's much cheaper than what we were paying. But yeah, differences. So I think if you hire someone part-time or by the hour, you probably pay more than if you hire someone for a full-time and pay per month.
All right, and just so you know, here's a disclaimer because Portugal loves taxes. There's also taxes involved. So if you hire a nanny directly, full-time or even part-time, there can be taxes involved because generally you are considered that nanny's employer and you would be obligated to pay employer taxes. Now, we're not going to dive into all the specifics of the numbers and everything like that because we're not tax advisors and those numbers can change over time. So just know that if you hire someone full-time, there's probably going to be some taxes involved on top of that.
If you're going with an agency, they will outline all these numbers for you. They will give like a whole proposal with all these taxes that are involved. So you'll know it if you're going through an agency like that. Now, about daycare. Nora just enrolled one, so we know a little bit more about that. Kids here in Portugal are not required to go to school until they're 6 years old, but there's of course options. So parents can enroll their kids into daycare, aka a creche, from 3 months old until 3 years old. After that, from 3 years old to 6 years old, there is preschool, which is called Jardim de Infância. And after 6 years old, kids are going to primary school.
It's pretty cool. Granted, we haven't had a baby in our home countries, so I'm not totally familiar with all the programs and how daycares work in the United States, but it seems like here they have lots of options and good quality daycares from when your baby is very young, so I think that's pretty cool. All right, so there are both public and private daycare options, so let's start with public first. Public daycare is usually more affordable or it can even be free depending on your income level. And once you sign up for that daycare, you are then put on a waiting list. And this waiting list is prioritized obviously based on when you sign up, so your spot in the line, but also a variety of other factors such as your income level, your proximity to the location of the daycare, if both parents are working, etc., etc. So they take a variety of factors into it, and yeah, there's usually just a longer queue to get into these public daycares.
And private daycare tends to have a shorter waiting list, and it's more likely that they offer a more English-speaking staff, which is useful for all the expats that are just moving to Portugal and haven't learned the language yet. There also tends to be more flexibility around like the pickup hours and other extra activities at the school. At Nora's daycare, for example, we can pick her up all the way to 7 p.m. There is music classes. They even offer yoga and taekwondo for older kids. Of course, at an extra price.
I want Nora in taekwondo ASAP. And besides that, there are also alternative school options here in Portugal, such as Montessori, Waldorf, and forest schools, which is pretty cool if you're into that sort of thing. They tend to be more common around the densely populated areas such as Lisbon or Porto. But even one of the areas that we're considering moving to, there's like multiple Montessori and forest schools around there. So pretty stoked about that. So whether you opt for the public or private route, just choose whichever one's best suits your needs. All right, so to find a list of daycares near you, let's start off with the obvious. Just go to google.com and type in daycares near me, and hopefully that'll provide you a list with some in the area. But not all daycares have been welcomed to the digital age yet. Some of them it's hard to find. So if you also want to search some of the government resources, you can go to the Segurança Social website, and they provide a list of daycares in the area.
We'll share a link.
Yeah, we'll share a link in the description.
I'm not sure if you'll find an actual list of all the public daycares on that website. I haven't found it yet.
Yeah, so if you do know of an aggregated list of like all the daycares that you can search by region, post a link in the comments because that would be super helpful for us as we continue our search for daycares in the location that we're going to move to next. However, there is a really cool website called the International Schools Database. Let me look. It's international-schools-database.com, and that has a database of international schools all over the world, and you can filter by city. It's actually really handy. It's a really nicely made website, and we filtered by Lisbon, and it shows all the international schools in Lisbon. Granted, this is more for schools for when your children are older, but in Portugal, a lot of the international schools will let your children sign up as early as age 1. So they have the preschool and kindergarten programs. So even on that website, if you go there, there are international schools that'll let your child enter as early as 1.
Yeah, and you can filter on age. So you can easily filter out which international schools let your child join when they're 1 year old. Now, let's talk about our own journey of finding daycare for Nora. First, we went to a school that's literally around the corner here that we pass by almost every day. So we know that that's a school, probably the school is closest to us as possible. So we went to their website and got her on a waiting list. On their website, they're already saying, we're full. Please do not ask anything. We're not giving tours whatsoever. Just get her on the waiting list, and once she's admitted, then you'll get a tour of the school.
Which is unfortunate because it looks like an amazing school.
Yeah. So not knowing how long the waiting list is, we were like, let's sign her up with other schools as well, so that we know that by the time that we want to enroll her, that she has options. So I went to Google Maps and I searched for nursery or creche or daycare. I tried multiple words. I found a couple. And not all daycares have a website, it's just a Google Maps listing, so it was kind of hard to tell, is this a good school? Like, what kind of school is this? So no further information. So after that, I went to the local Facebook group of the neighbors of this area, and I asked them, where do you send your kids? Which daycares can you recommend? And I got a bunch of responses there. And I listed those, and I was like, okay, this is the top 5 from the comments here. Let's find out more about these daycares.
Another option, if you again want to utilize the government resources, is the local Junta de Freguesia. I'm probably butchering that name, but it's basically the local government office to your neighborhood. Essentially, you can go there and request a list of the daycares in the neighborhood and go about it that way. All right, so let's continue on to the waiting list that we've been talking about. Apparently, it is common to have to get on a waiting list to get into a daycare, especially good quality ones. Josine, she was saying that in the Netherlands, yeah, you need to sign your baby up for daycare as soon as they're born. That way, by the time they're ready to start, they can actually be admitted.
As soon as you're pregnant, you should enroll or get your kid on the list.
Which is insane to me. There needs to be more daycares. But anyways, yeah, we started looking into get Nora into daycare a little bit too late, because by the time we started looking in February, and we wanted to get her in March, it was too late. Everything was already full, mid-school year, so yeah, just a word to the wise. As soon as you know where you're gonna land, essentially, in Portugal, get your kid on the waiting list for daycare.
Yeah. Also, from all the schools that I reached out to get her on a waiting list, none of them invited us for a tour or whatsoever. I don't know if that's common, but I would like to see the school before I enroll Nora there, because I want to know, I want to know the school. That was not a thing. Besides one, there was one private daycare that sent an email back with sure, yeah, you can come over and have a look at our facility. So yeah, we were very pleased about that. So we went there and got the tour of the school, and we really liked what we saw. So after that tour, we emailed them saying yeah, we would love to have Nora in your school. How do we go from here? And then the email back was no, we don't have any availability. Why were we then there? Or I don't know, it was just a little bit of a disappointment. And because of you said maybe just email them back and say we really liked it there, can we? Yeah,
they basically said sorry, we don't have any openings right now. And I was like, well, that's kind of weird that they invited us down for a tour only to say that there's no spots available. I'm like, just ask again. Maybe there's a spot open, or if you ask really, really nicely, maybe they'll make an exception.
Or they will remember you when there is an availability. And that was for us the case, because a week later they emailed back like, hey, actually, we just heard that one of the kids is leaving, and that means that there's a spot available for Nora if you want it. Yes, we got Nora in mid-March. So we started looking in February. We found this school, let's say, end of February, and 2 weeks later she could enroll.
Yeah, and I would say, even though we got probably very lucky, this is not a common scenario that happens. Usually you have to be on the wait list for a while. We just got lucky that one of the students mid semester, whatever you want to call it, they were moving out of the country. So very fortunate for that and very grateful. All right, so let's talk about the cost of daycare. Obviously, this is a big difference depending on if you go public or private. And if you go the public route, this can depend on your income level. But from what we've seen online, this can range anywhere from free if you're on the lower income side, or up to around $300, kind of the average.
Yeah, so Nora is going to a private daycare, and that's more on the expensive side of things.
Which is also probably one of the reasons why we were even able to get her a spot.
Yeah.
It's a little more expensive than we were hoping to get, but yeah, it's a private daycare, so we were desperate to get her into a daycare, so we took what we could get.
And here we're paying for like 5 days a week, including lunch, including insurance of the school, and including music class. When I told my sister and my friends back at home in the Netherlands about how much we're paying, they were like, whoa, that is so affordable. For that price, we can get our kids for like 2 days a week into daycare. So to them, it was very affordable.
And I know my sister back home, she has like 5 kids, and 3 of them are younger, and I remember her always complaining about like how much she was spending on daycare. And I know a lot of people in the States, like the mother will often just stay home and not work anymore because the amount that she would be making at her job is around or just a little bit more than she spends on daycare. So it makes more sense for the mom just to stay at home with the kids, because then you also get the side benefit is just spending more time with your babies. But granted, that's all relative. Obviously, those are different countries, and the average income and salary here in Portugal is much less than the Netherlands or the United States, so it's not really comparable. But for what we're paying, I think we're getting a good quality daycare. The facilities and the programs that Nora gets to partake in seem like really amazing, so yeah, I'm stoked for her.
All right, next is the paperwork that you would need if you want to sign up your kid for daycare. So, some final information here. You would probably need a birth certificate of your kid, whether that is from the States or from whichever country. You need the birth certificate. You need a NIF number of your own, like one of the parents need to have a NIF number, which is the tax number here in Portugal. You need your NIF number for almost everything here. You would need proof of residence, so your rental contract, anything, an electricity bill, and proof of income. You have to show pay slips or your tax returns of the previous year.
Because like we mentioned before, if you're going to a public daycare, that will often, the price you pay will depend on your level of income.
Make sure that you have these documents with you when you come to Portugal, or that you can request them easily.
Is that something they'll say on the website when you're applying? Is like you need these documents when you go to apply, or they don't tell you that until you email them and inquire?
Depends per school. Some of these required them when I signed Nora up for the waiting list. Some of them say like certain documents you can just show when you enroll your kids.
You can tell who did all the research when signing Nora up for daycare. There you have it. There's all the information that we have on how to find a nanny or daycare in Portugal if you're an expat or just moving here. Keep in mind, this is just our opinion and based on our experience. We're newbies, we're still like new parents, you know, we only have 1 child. Nora's like 1.5 years old. So if you have a different experience than us, or you're like, hey, you guys missed this, or you're wrong here, like, we are open to feedback. Drop a comment below if you have more valuable information to add, or correct us if we were wrong on anything. But yeah, we're happy to help.
And as always, if you're a traveling family considering Portugal as your home base, we'd love to connect with you. So leave a comment or connect with us on our socials. We're happy to hear from you.
Yep. And if you can, do us a favor and hit the thumbs up and subscribe to this video. If you haven't noticed already, we're almost at 1,000 subscribers. We are super stoked on this milestone. We started this channel, I don't know, 8 or 9 months ago, and it's been a journey. So if you can help us out getting to that 1,000 subscriber mark, we would definitely appreciate you. Thank you very much.
We publish weekly videos, so stay tuned for next week's video. And for now, thank you so much for watching. And remember, explore life beyond borders. Bye.